long coat. But first of all, please welcome to the stage Mark Rutterford and his story, ManBoyManBoy Boy.
The start of the 80s offered limitless promise. I entered the decade a schoolboy, but as I'd be 24 by New Year's Eve 1989, I reckoned I'd be working, smoking, drinking, driving, probably simultaneous combinations of some of those things. I'd have a flat and a girlfriend too. All in all, I was looking forward to the most momentous decade of my life, and hoping the girlfriend would come along soon. Let me put all this in context. At an all-boys comprehensive school in the Socialist Republic of Islington, 1980 was a difficult time. It was Maggie Thatcher's first winter in charge, and there was huge resentment that the lights stayed on and the bins were taken away. The skinheads offering National Front leaflets at the school gates had been seen off by a multinational group of 13-year-olds, and the endemic drug of choice was Benson and Hedges. If you tried glue, it stank. So much has changed since, it now seems medieval. But for me, the 1980s were a decade of infinite possibility, limitless hope. Of course, I was racked with teenage insecurity and incessant masturbation. I chose my own soundtrack, and after my Sunday night bath, the records I played inspired me to believe that I could do and be anything, even a man. I felt like a man chasing the skinheads away from the school gates. I felt like a man pinning my solidarity badge onto my chest, half freedom fighter, half in love with my Polish human biology teacher. I felt like a man slipping a length to Joanna, my first, in 1983. But that was the language of the age, and I was of that age, and I used that language. But I felt like a man for not shouting my mouth off about it. I felt like a boy when Joanna went off with Jack Butler. I felt like a boy when I was refused entry to an X-rated horror movie. I felt like a boy when my nan died. Then there were the man-boy moments. Sometimes they ended in boy, sometimes they ended in man. Then, as now, it's a very fine dividing line. One night, when I was just 18, I went to the theatre. ManBoyManBoy, man. Sophisticated, eh? I wore a 1945 trench coat with my collar turned up, a black shirt with the top button done up, and tight jeans tucked into my black suede pixie boots. My mates took the pee out of me relentlessly, but I loved that look and it felt right. And the more they called me names, the stronger I felt. Sophisticated and independent. ManBoy, man. I got the tube home and had to walk from King's Cross. I grew up in London. I'd had a few whacks and knew how to walk the streets and not appear like a victim. I'd walked past the ladies I'd come to think of as the professionals, and ignored their offers of half-priced blowjobs for quick finishers. I got past the overhead rail tracks, but I dreaded the deep-set arches on Pancras Road. I imagined all sorts of perverts and nutters lurking in the dark. I saw the light of a cigarette glow 2 arches ahead of me. I said it was my imagination until I saw it again. Then, to my right, I heard a car slowing beside me, but I didn't acknowledge it. I just walked on. The car crawled at exactly my pace. It was a Cortina, black. I was a boy, white. Lad's about to give me a kicking. A nonce going to hook me on heroin and hawk my arse around the West End to work off the debt. Or Jack Nicholson from The Shining. ManBoyManBoy Boy. The cigarette ahead glowed again. Shit. The car to my side revved a little to unnerve me. It worked. The window was wound down by its plastic handle, and a deep and threatening Bob Hoskins' voice said, "Can I give you a lift?" I stood as tall as I could, right hand in my pocket, hoping my future pimp might think I had a knife. The cigarette ahead was moving in my direction. I was dead, simple as that, surrounded, outfoxed, dead. I whimpered and farted. The car leapt forward and its left wheel mounted the curb. The back door flew open in front of me. Man, boy, boy, about to die. The cigarette had been cast aside and its owner was running now, and I stood still and watched as Billy O'Grady threw the bottle in her right hand and saw it bounce off the windscreen and smash at my feet. Billy was Davo's sister, 2 years older than us, a tomboy going on full-blown gender crisis, and hard as nails. Her peroxide hair shone in the streetlight as she stood on the far side of the car and shouted, "Come on then!" They didn't, obviously, because a middle-aged man pulled the car door shut and told the driver to get me away. As the car bumped down from the pavement and sped up the road, Billy didn't flinch, not a bit. She must have told a joke for which the punchline was "wankers," because that's what she shouted into the night, and I laughed out loud. And I knew, man, boy, boy was the truth of it. "All right, Martin," she said. "Hello, Billy," I smiled as she walked over to me. I began to regret the fart. I knew from experience they could hang around for a while and escape at the time of their choosing. "Tossers," she said. "I'll give their number to the police tomorrow." "Hey, I'm glad it was you, Billy. Not sure what I'd have done otherwise." That's what happens with pretty things like you. People want to take them for themselves. "No one's ever called me pretty before," I said. "Nor me," replied Billy, breaking my heart. "But you look younger than you are, kind of innocent." "It's a curse," I agreed. "Don't worry, I'll corrupt you," she teased. "Come on, if we run, we'll beat last orders." Now, for hands that threw beer bottles and made obscene gestures, Billy's was surprisingly soft. She put her arm in mine and drew me up the street with a twinkle in her eye and frequent glances. In the pub, I said, "Stop laughing at me." "But you had to show ID to get served." So we sat down with our pints of snakebite and blackcurrant and relived my great escape, the adrenaline still running high. I noticed that Billy had softened. 3 years ago, her hair was close cropped and her look was tough. Now the wedge at the back framed Billy's neck, and looking through her lopsided fringe made her seem quite demure. She'd gone a bit early banana-rama. One of the lads, but with styled hair and tits in her dungarees. "How's Dado?" I asked. Billy gave me a look. We were 12 when we changed Davo O'Grady into Dado O'Grady, but his sister was still unimpressed. "He's a bit unsure about moving to Ireland," she said. "But that's what we're doing. I haven't had a proper job in 3 years of looking, and there's going to be less chance in Dublin. I don't know Ireland at all. I grew up here." So I looked at Billy's hands, and then past her hair and into her eyes. They were green, and it was a moment, one of those you remember. Brave with drink, I said, "You certainly did grow up. You look like a girl now." "So do you," she said, "especially in those boots." I took a drag from a cigarette. "What I'm saying to you, Billy, is that I think you're pretty." Man, boy, man. "Well, now you tell me, a week before I leave the country," she said. "Consider it a leaving present." "Oh, I think you can do better than that." Billy twinkled and she leant over and kissed me. It was ferocious and eye-watering, like a swig from a bottle of whiskey. The second kiss was urgent, the third was tender. When we snuck into her room, we made love very quietly for fear of being heard. I think it was the most alive I've ever felt. For an hour afterwards, we just looked into each other's eyes. There was surprise, conspiracy, joy. When there was sadness that it would all come to nothing, we kissed it away. It was simple, innocent in its way, of the time. And when I crept to the door at 3 a.m, I just said, "Take care, Billy." She just said, "Thank you." In the days that followed, I turned myself inside and out. It would never work, no matter how much I might want it to. I wanted Billy a whole lot, but I was still at school, for Christ's sake. And a Saturday job was no basis on which to fund trips to Dublin. I couldn't talk about it, least of all to Davo, and I tore up all 20 of the letters I wrote as Alison Moyet sang out "Only You" from a 7-inch single played 30 times a night. It was like a holiday romance, and I felt the kind of empty you feel on the flight home. It hurt, and I was man, boy, boy. I tried to think it better. 2 consenting adults, no one got hurt, we both moved on. Maybe this was what being a man felt like, taking the truth and living with it. Maybe, man, boy, I didn't know anymore. Until 3 weeks ago, when I got a letter. It was from a woman called Katie, a teacher in Birmingham of all places. She said she taught English, but I think she has that wrong. It's history she's teaching, Billy's and mine, her parents. Do you know, it's quite a thing to read You're a Father 3 decades after the event. It has great polarity, then and now. It's all I've thought about. Did I live up to the promise of my 18-year-old self? No. Did I become a man that I would have been proud of? Probably not. At best, the jury's out. Katie and I swapped letters and shared a few details. Billy's in London, about to celebrate her silver wedding. Davo's still in Dublin. And everyone's been very supportive of Katie's attempts to track me down. And now, she has. They seem a long way away, the 1980s. Back then, I could do and be anything, remember? Well, now I'm about to be held to account by a daughter I've never met, and I'm not sure what I've achieved. I feel shy, and it's because I think I'll be a disappointment. Oh, I loved, with all my heart 3 or 4 times, and lost them all. Some of the losing was my own doing, and I hurt some people along the way. That's not good. My idealism became pragmatism somewhere along the line, and like millions before me, I ended up in some kind of career mortgage rut. But I'm not a captain of industry, and it's an end of terrace, not a castle. I've not raised a family, or saved a life, or swum the channel. But I am proud of this though, being able to stand up in front of you and talk. So I suggested to my daughter that she might like to come along tonight, but that she shouldn't tell me. She could check me out without any pressure, and she could leave without speaking to me. It's a tricky thing, this meeting your father, a lifetime late. I might have seen her already. I could have stood at the bar beside my child of the 1980s. Wow. So here I am, Katie, feeling a little unsure and a little exposed. But for the first time in many years, I get that sense of possibility, that sense of infinity. space to fill in ways that I can't quite imagine. It's as exhilarating and as scary as the night you were conceived, and I feel full of hope. I almost bought some black suede pixie boots for courage. I still think they're great, but I bet I'm still the only one. And I'd hate for my daughter to think I was a girl. I am once again, if not forever. Man, boy, boy, boy.